Okay, today, guys, we're going to be replacing this heater hose. This is the heater outlet hose, I believe, that has developed a leak. It took me a while to track this leak down. I was getting a lot of coolant loss, about half a quart a day. And it was always showing up underneath, but I finally, because what would happen is the stuff would boil off and you wouldn't see it up on top. But I finally caught it. I've let the engine cool off so I can do the repair. I took a quick clip to show you how it's leaking. Basically, there's a fine, several pinhole mists kind of shooting out from this pipe here, this hose, and you end up seeing the coolant condense up around this cable bracket, as well as along this harness here. On top of these bolts, you can see it's got a fine mist of high pressure, high temperature coolant. Let me break for a second, let you see what the problem is. We'll come back and we'll start taking this apart to change it. All right, what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to replace this entire assembly with a new GM hose. It's got both this elbow as well as this aluminum piece, as well as the hose that goes all the way back over to the heater core behind the firewall. And in order to do that, I'm going to have to remove this clamp down here. And I'm also, since I'm in here, since this guy gave out, that's the reason I'm not just replacing this elbow. I'm going to do the whole thing, because obviously if it's old enough to go here, it could be old enough to go there. And then I'm also going to take off the idler pulley here, because the crossover for the water pump is just as old. I had changed the water pump 4 or 5 years ago, got in a pinch, and didn't change that crossover hose, and so now's the time just to change it all out. But I can't get to everything very easily without that. So let's get going. The first thing I'm going to do is release the tension on the serpentine belt. I'm just going to take one of my ratchet wrenches, and there's a, right in the bottom of this adjuster, there's a place for you to put a wrench in like this, and you'll be able to push down on it and release the tension on the serpentine belt, like so. And let this guy come back up. And now we have him out of the way. And then we're going to remove this 13mm bolt that's holding this pulley in place. Just going to get it started by hand. Kind of hold it on so it doesn't fall off on the ground. This whole thing should come off as a unit. And now with that out of the way, let's get this hose a little bit more out of my way here. So the first spring clamp we're going to have to take off is this. Now normally I might try to use a tool like this, but I really can't get that in there. This is just a standard spring clamp pair of pliers. So I've got another tool when I got cramped corners like this, which is a telescoping kind of tool. And we'll see if we can get this guy in there instead. I think we will be able to get this guy in there. So if we can get this side, which side would be best for this? This side would probably be the best for that. And nope, it's going to have to be this other side. So if I can get some more slack on this, I can get this on to this guy. Just need another couple of millimeters. Let's see if that's enough. It is. All right, so just going to clamp this down and pull him up out of the way. It's really swelled up on the top, so take a little bit of time. There we go. All right, got that out of the way, released the tension on the tool, and now we got the clamp in the back, and that's the only two things holding this on other than this bolt. So let me go ahead and get this 10mm bolt off while we're in here. Okay. There's probably going to be some coolant that gives way when we first pull the hose off. I'm going to go ahead and try to break the seal on the hose. Again, you don't have a lot of room in here at all, but it should be enough. And I'm also standing on like a stool to help give me some leverage and help me get in here. All right, so that's off. Now we're going to take off of the, there's a retainer here, and then there's the pipe going into the heater core behind the firewall. I'm going to take a small putty knife, plastic putty knife. Use whatever you find works for you, and I'm going to prise it out of this hose retainer. I'm mostly doing this just so I don't break the little retaining tabs. All right, so we got it out of there. Now the last thing we need to do is get it off the end of the heater core itself. Now that I probably can get away with my standard pair of hose clamps. Just opening them up here. Moving my stool a little closer. See if I can get underneath there. It's kind of upside down. Yeah, it's a really awkward spot. You know, and I might just use the other tool again because I can't really see really well to use the standard pliers. So we'll try using the remote tool again. Just adjusting it for the right type of clamp. I guess this is probably going to be the hardest part of this. Oh, missed it. All right, guys, let me pause for a second and get it on the clamp, and then we'll come back. All right, guys, it's just an awkward angle to get the tool in, but once you get it into position, then it's the same kind of thing where you can just give it a squeeze and get the tension in place on the tool and get it to lock into position, and then move it back. Again, the hose is just a little swelled, so it might take a couple of tries. All right, so I'm just going to release tension on the tool now. Very handy tool to have for this thing, instead of screwing around with a pair of pliers. All right, now we need to loosen that hose and pull it off. So I'm going to grab a pair of pliers, just like we did on the one up above. Actually, what I can see is it's cracking. You guys can see that right there. Just trying to twist it, it has torn. So what I'm going to have to do now is I'm just going to get a cutter and cut it off because we're throwing it out anyway, and might as well just do it this way to speed things up. So I'm just going to walk over to the garage here and pick up a box cutter and just going to give it a slight slice. I'm going to try not to cut in too far because I don't want to make any kind of a groove on the aluminum nipple going into the heater core itself. That should be enough to get it off. Okay, we got that off. All right, now we're just going to fish this whole assembly out of here. Looks like it's held on by one more little retainer here on the side of the fender. Same kind of deal as up here. There's another one right down here. I'll get a flashlight down there and highlight it for you guys. All right, so next thing we got to do, as I said, we're going to try and do a combo here. I was going to go ahead and change the water pump crossover pipe while I was in here as well. And getting this stuff out of the way. Looks like might have to actually remove the alternator. Might have to remove the alternator lead here because it kind of obstructs being able to pull this out. But let's go ahead and get this other piece off. This I might be able to get done with just the hose clamp pliers. Or no, let's see. And we'll come back in just a second. All right, guys, I got a little flashlight in here. Hope it helps you see a little bit. I'm going to use these hose clamp pliers here to get this guy off. It's just a very little room, so we've got him, but we can't get it to clear the swollen part of the pipe yet. There he goes. All right. All right, that's enough on him. Now this one down here. All right, guys, sorry about that. For some reason, the phone stopped filming before I wanted it to. We got to get this last clamp off here. Now this one's in a really awkward position. Got the flashlight down here. Hopefully you can see what I'm talking about here. I can't get any of the tools in because one of the ears of this spring is right up against this bracket. I don't want to take this whole accessory bracket off just to pull this one clamp. So I'm going to see if I can get in here, you know, old school wise with a pair of needle nose pliers. I don't know if I'll be able to do it or not. I'm just trying to get it squeezed enough to move it where we can get a better tool to get a grip. This might take a while, and we'll see how this goes, and either might film it or I might come back to it after we get it repositioned. Yeah, I think what I'm going to do is, rather than waste you guys' time on this, I'll pause it here. I'll come back after I got this guy repositioned. It's probably going to take a few minutes of fiddling with this. All right, guys, it took 5 or 6 times, but I finally got those needle nose pliers to squish it enough so I could get it out of the way where we could get our regular tool in here. At least we had it in there. Try again here. Nope, he's not going to get in there. Very tight spot. So I may have to go ahead and just do the whole thing with these kind of tools instead of the white way. It's just a very cramped spot. And with a pair of needle nose like this, you got to get it at the edge of the lips or it won't compress enough to move anyway. Nope, gonna have to go offline and work on it some more. All right, what I finally got success with is getting it out of the way enough to get these conventional pliers on it, and then using this little guy here to get cotter pins out, just to help grab one of the sides. You can see the sides of this thing when I get it out, I have little cutouts in it, and I was able to inch it on up here and get it out. You can see there's like little cutouts on the side here. I was able to use that to grab on. All right, so now what we want to do is pull this hose off so we can put the new one on. Same deal as the others at this stage. You know, I don't have a lot of room to grip down here, so I might just cut the whole thing off. I don't know. going to be able to get any kind of room in there to twist it off. So, yep, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to end up having to cut this guy off and pull it off that way. So let me get a cutter that I can use for that. And then take that piece off. And then we'll just pull the residual out so we can get this job over with. And again, you know, the main thing that was leaking was the heater hose, but just don't want to take a chance on this guy leaking at some point down the road. So we're just going to go ahead and take him off too. All right, so I am going to get this hose off, and we'll come back. All right, guys, the reason I cut that hose earlier was to get the clamps off. And the way I get these hoses off in a situation like this is I take like a pair of nose pliers like this, and you just get like a really tight grip on them and just twist it around till it comes loose and comes off. This one, same deal. Just keep twisting around. You get enough tension on there so you can feel it turning, and then you start trying to give it a pull, and it'll come off. All right, now let's put the new stuff on. At least we're going to start putting the new stuff on with this. So I've got a replacement for this crossover pipe. It's a GMC Delco 102 42185, and I've already preloaded a couple of new spring clamps on here. And the spring clamps I'm using are GM 11570383. They're the same size as these old ones that came off, but they're, as you can see, a little bit of a different style. And they, like most of these spring clamps from GM, they come preloaded. And what I usually do, just because these things are under tension, they can really give you some injury, I put them on the pipe first. This particular type, there's like a little notch here that you can put a screwdriver in. And I like to put them in a vise, like grab the bottom part in a vise, and you can give them a twist like this and pop it open. All right, so we're going to go ahead and put this guy on. And then before we can put the new heater hose on, we're going to have to remove the back of the alternator cable so we can clear the old one and get it out. But let's go ahead and put this guy on. And I'm just taking a look at the old one here for reference. It definitely looks like it goes on this side and this side. Okay. I'm just going to work that all the way into the base on both of these nipples. Okay. And, you know, I can see that we're going to want to reposition this guy for sure so that we can get access to him easier. Should have thought about this a little bit before I squeezed it on, but get him out of the way so we can put him down into the position we want later. Okay. And this one we can just go ahead and put into position now. If we can grab it. One end of this is kind of cupped, and well, that's why I didn't grab it. I just noticed that one of my pieces popped off, and that is why this tool's been giving me such a hard time today. Didn't even notice that. All right, well, I'll have to go try and find that piece later. Let's see if we can make it work for now. Let's get into a better position, and then we'll find that piece that popped off the tool. I did not even hear that hit the ground. All right, we're going to need to, like I said, disconnect the battery so that we can remove the back of the alternator cable. So I've got a couple of tools for that. I'm just going to drop the negative side off over here. Just using a 3/8. It's a 5/16 battery terminal wrench to get this guy off. Just drop negative here, and then we'll be able to pull the little cover off the back of this cable, and then we'll be able to take a crescent wrench. I don't know if this one's big enough. I might have to get a bigger one. You might be okay. Just get this nut off. And hopefully that'll be enough to clear this. I don't know, it might not be. We might end up having to yank this whole piece off the side, or maybe even take the alternator off. Was not anticipating this clearance problem with getting this old hose out of here. But let's see. I think I can tell right now it's not going to help. Nope. It's got about just 1/4 of an inch that it needs out of the way, so we're going to have to pull the alternator. That sucks, but that looks like that's going to be part of the procedure here. So I dropped my nut. I'll get that in a minute. Take this opportunity to thank the GM engineers for doing this and creating some extra work. All we have to do to get this guy out is we're going to have to take these 2 bolts here and here out, and then we'll be able to pull that guy out of the way. So let me go get my other wrench and we'll come back. All right, guys, I got this bolt off the alternator. We're going to take this one off. With those 2 bolts out of the way, we should be able to prise this guy loose. Just remember how I got this out of here the last time I had to do this. Might have been from this side. Yeah, there it is. Okay. All right, yeah, he's just a friction fit inside this little bracket. That should be enough to get this guy out. And we'll just pull the old side through. Can't really tell which is going to be harder. Gotta get them all the way. All right. Okay. Got that out of the way. Then we're going to get our new one. And then I'm going to get some gloves here. It's going to be kind of dirty when we hook it up in the back. All right, guys. Like I was telling you earlier, I'm going to replace this with a whole brand new assembly I've got over here. And the part number on this guy is 157-08635. So this will be the hose, the heater outlet hose for a pickup truck with the standard alternator, like, you know, the 105 amp. What's different is there's another version that this piece here is different if you have the high capacity alternator. And then if you've got a Tahoe or a Yukon, the standard alternator is going to be just 1 digit difference. It'll be 157-08634, and it's just about maybe a foot shorter than the pickup version. And then also there's another variation for the alternators on the Suburban. So this is what we're going to install. I've already taken this little, you know, these little caps that come on here from the factory. I like to take a little wire brush and go up in here as far as I can just to make sure there's no debris and blow it out. But we're going to get started installing this, and I'll roll the part numbers in the video description like I usually do. All right, so let's get started. Just going to bring this guy in underneath here, just like the other one was. And then we'll hook him into this bracket that we had last time, which was up here. And I mentioned to you guys before that you couldn't see it earlier. I'd bring a flashlight in here to show. There's another bracket right down here. that holds it as well. Can't quite reach back there enough. Got to move my little ladder here, climb up over the front. Get this guy on there. All right. Then I'm going to take this little plug out. I took the one out the other end already. Okay, so next thing we need to do is I just need to find that part on my hose pliers so that we can start snapping in or putting into position these snap rings, and then we'll be ready to start putting the alternator back and getting it all bolted up and give it a test fire. Let's come back in. All right guys, unfortunately it's going to rain on me here and it's gotten super dark, so hopefully you can see. I got a little flashlight out here to help, but we got this guy back on. This bolt here is 22 foot-pounds. This pulley goes back on at 37 foot-pounds. Of course, we put the alternator back on, 37 foot-pounds on the left bolt, and for some reason the right bolt's only 18, but that's what the service manual says. We've got our new heater outlet pipe routing behind the alternator correctly. It's sitting inside this bracket, and we've got it hooked up to the heater core over there. We've got our spring clamp in position on that side as well. So we're going to start it up, and I think this is going to fix our problem. And I hope this video helped you out. And if you got any questions, leave them in the comments. Please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.